U.S. investors can take advantage of some significant tax benefits through investing in IRAs. An IRA is an individual retirement arrangement, and it allows you to invest in a tax benefited manner. So in the form of a traditional IRA, that means that you get to contribute money this year and deduct some or all of that money from your income, so reducing your taxable income this year. Or in the form of a Roth IRA, you don't get that tax benefit now, but when you take the money out in retirement, you don't pay any taxes on the gains or on any of the money that you withdraw. So they're a great tool to use. Let's take a look at some of the details with them so you can decide if they're a good fit for you. The IRS website does have some good resources on this, but of course it can be a lot to sift through. So let's take a look at just some of the basic stuff and give you an idea of what things you need to keep in mind if you are contributing to IRAs. So the first place I want to go is to contribution limits. So one of the things that a lot of people may not realize when they're first setting up an IRA is that you can actually contribute to both a traditional and a Roth in the same year, but your contribution limit applies to both. So for most of us, that's $6,000 in any given tax year. So you can contribute $3,000 to a traditional, $3,000 to a Roth, or any mixture, assuming that you meet the income guidelines, and we'll get there. But that's something that I didn't even realize when I started, so I wanted to mention that right away. Another useful tool on the IRS website is a breakdown of traditional and Roth IRA information. It's important to sift through each of these rows, so let's take a look at that. You can contribute to a traditional IRA regardless of your income level, but you don't necessarily get to deduct those contributions from your taxable income, and that has to do with just your income level in general and whether or not you're contributing to a retirement plan at work. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. A Roth IRA, there is an income limit, so we'll also take a look at that. If you are earning a really large income, you may not be eligible for a Roth IRA at all. And as we discussed before, there's no upfront deduction for your contributions to a Roth IRA. There is actually a retirement savers credit, different from a deduction, and since this is not really a tax preparation video, we won't get too into the weeds, but if your income is relatively low and you're in a low tax bracket as it is, you can get a retirement savers credit for part of your contributions, even to a Roth IRA. So one more reason to consider that if you're in a low income position. We've already touched on contribution limits, so I'm focusing on 2019. So for most people, that's going to be a $6,000 contribution limit, and there is $1,000 that you can do as a catch-up if you're age 50 or older by the end of the tax year. The deadline to make contributions is going to be April 15th. In this case, they're highlighting April 15th of 2019. Typically, it's by the tax filing date. You can make contributions for the previous year. Now, this is one that I don't particularly care for the wording. I feel like they need an asterisk or something here, but you can withdraw money anytime, but that oftentimes comes with a penalty. So let's skip down to the bottom of this table. Are my withdrawals and distributions taxable? In the case of a traditional IRA, the answer is yes. Even in retirement, you got your tax benefit up front by contributing. You don't necessarily get a tax benefit in retirement. And as a matter of fact, if you're withdrawing before age 59 and a half, I know how they come up with 59 and a half. I don't have an answer for that. But if you're withdrawing before that age, there's actually an additional 10% tax for that early withdrawal. And this is where some of the flexibility of a Roth IRA comes in. So with a Roth IRA, there are certain types of qualified distributions. So there's certain situations where you can withdraw money from a Roth IRA without paying that tax penalty. Now, keep in mind, money comes out of a Roth IRA without paying a tax in general. You paid your taxes before the money went in. But if you want to avoid paying that additional 10% tax for early withdrawals, we can take a look at what some of those qualified distributions are. In order for a distribution to be qualified, it has to meet a couple criteria. So for one, your account needs to be 5 years old. The other thing is that the distribution either needs to happen after you reach age 59 and a half because of disability, or it can be to a beneficiary after your death, or this is one that a lot of people will highlight, and I think it's good to be aware of. If you are doing this as a first-time home purchase, so there's a lifetime limit of $10,000, and as a matter of fact, in order for it to be a first-time home purchase, it just means that you have to not have had an interest in a main home within the last 2 years. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only time you've bought a home. If you're in that situation and you're looking through that, there is more information. In fact, I have that tab up as well. But a Roth IRA can, in effect, be a way to save for a first-time home purchase and avoid paying taxes when you withdraw. I mentioned the fact that there are income limits if you want to contribute to a Roth IRA. Let's take a little bit of a look at that now. One of the things that can make it, again, just tough to make sense of is this modified AGI. So that is a modified adjusted gross income. The adjusted has to do with there are certain things that lower your gross income. So for example, if you contribute to a 401k, if you're contributing to a traditional 401k, that's reducing your gross income. If you are contributing to a health savings account, that's going to reduce your gross income. There are things beyond that as well too. Tuition expenses, I believe interest rate on student loans. There's quite a few things that are adjustments to your gross income. Modified, you add certain things back in. So in the case of modified adjusted gross income, boy, that rolls off the tongue. The modifications usually mean adding back in stuff like your tuition and fees. If you want kind of just a quick way to compare, just look and see if your income as a whole, if you're single and you're finding that you're in this range of income, it's probably worth it to sit down, talk to a financial advisor, and see whether or not you can contribute to a Roth IRA. Similarly, if you're married and your gross income is in this range, it's probably time to sit down with someone who can look at your situation specifically and help you with that. It is important to note that 401k contributions can effectively lower both your adjusted gross income and your modified adjusted gross income. So that can be a way to make you eligible for Roth IRA contributions. Traditional IRAs work a bit differently. So there's actually not an income limit in order to be able to contribute, but you can't necessarily get the full deduction if your income is above certain thresholds. So I'm going to look mostly at this first case where you are covered by a retirement plan at work. So that would be the case if you have a pension or 401k. So in the case of someone who is single, at $64,000 or above, it starts to phase out how much you can contribute. So you can see you'd actually get a partial deduction in this year's taxes for your contributions, and if you get above $74,000, excuse me, there's no deduction at all. So that's something to be aware of. Again, the numbers, if you're married filing jointly, are a bit higher, but also watch for that. Keep in mind that even if you're not getting a deduction, simply having money that is held within a tax-deferred account has benefits. The best example of that is if you own a stock that pays a dividend. If you own that in a traditional brokerage account, you would actually pay taxes on that dividend every year that you're receiving dividends. So a little bit of that money would come out and wouldn't stay invested. In the case of a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, those dividends don't get taxed year after year. The money either gets taxed when it comes out, or in the case of a Roth, it was already taxed before it went in. So even if you're not getting a deduction, there can still be a benefit to putting money into a traditional IRA. We'll take a quick look at the example if you are not covered by a retirement plan at work. Now, I also want to take this opportunity to say that if you have the opportunity to get a match on a retirement plan like a 401k, where your employer is matching a certain percentage if you contribute, make sure you're taking advantage of that. If you're not, you really are leaving money on the table. Someone in HR at work should be able to help you out with finding out what you need to do to get enrolled in your 401k if you're not already, or at least let you know if that's something that the company offers. If your company does not offer any type of retirement plan, there is a freer sort of, or they open up the income restrictions on phasing out those deductions, but hopefully you're taking advantage of something like a 401k through your work. I'll post a link to this IRS page in the video description. If you'd like to dig more into this, there's certainly a lot of things to look into, and it really can become quite a rabbit hole of trying to understand the definitions around these things. But this should give you at least a basic understanding of the structure of IRAs and how they can benefit you. It's important to note, an IRA itself is not the investment. The investments are what go into the IRA. So if you open an IRA through a brokerage, you can typically choose what is inside that IRA or what your money is actually invested in. There's a lot of places that you can open IRAs. I would say avoid opening an IRA through something like an insurance agency. I think you're going to find that your investment options are fairly limited. Feel free to click this link, look at all the information they have out there, but this will at least give you something to get started. The good news is there's lots of places that you can get started investing that don't require an account minimum. So this is not just something for people who are investing thousands of dollars. If you're investing $10 or $20 a month, there are great places and great options for you. So don't sit on the sidelines and don't wait to get started investing. It's about being consistent and taking a long-term approach. So if this video has been helpful to you, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. And most of all, thanks for watching.